Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are at. Welcome to Mentor Mornings. So, have you ever thought about the difference between happiness and peace? Like, are those two separated? Are you frustrated that your life hasn't really met up with your expectations, or it never really got to that point where it turned out to be more? Marcus Aurelius, he was an emperor from the early first part of the century. He says, just because you've abandoned your hopes of becoming a great thinker or scientist, don't give up on attaining freedom, achieving humility, or serving others. So the important thing is that we know that there are options, always options. Life never really seems to grant us what we want. What if instead life granted us what we need? Like we all have dreams of some kind of future that we want to attain, and that's what gives us the desire to reach for that. And so often, these dreams that we have, these things that we want, like out inside the future, it's like they're out of reach. We're not able to grab them. And the rare few that do. Hey, good to see you on here. See, Fitma, it is our time. Good to see you on here, brother, sister, whoever you are. I don't know your name. Like they realize, the few that do reach those goals, they realize that attaining those goals, it wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. Jim Carrey has that famous quote where he says, I wish everyone could get rich and famous and everything they dreamed of so that they could see that it's not the answer. Like this whole time, like we think that we're supposed to be somewhere. We imagine inside of our heads, like, I can't feel peace. I can't feel happy. I can't feel like a damn success unless I have this thing that's outside of me, unless I have this thing that I'm reaching for. And so we live this life right now where we're always reaching, we're always seeking for this thing that's in the future. And this leaves us feeling empty or frustrated or less than. And the answer lies within each one of us, doesn't it? I mean, like this journey, this search, this part of life that we're living, we don't come in with an instruction manual. We don't know where we're at. We don't know why we're living here. We don't know why we're alive unless we do that inner search and it's something that lights up from inside. The only way that we can feel certainty in this life is if we gain it from inside of our hearts. Guys, if you appreciate this video, please hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you are not already so you can get on board with Mentor Mornings. And I do this 5 days a week, help you own your journey and fuel your day. So let's go on here. So what's the answer? And like when looking back and reading from ancient wisdom, from people that lived so long ago, the answer seems to be in the questions. Like the age-old questions, the questions that we've been asking ourselves for millennia. And these are the questions like, why are we here? What is our purpose? Who are we really? Like, how do we ensure that what we are doing and the choices that we are making are right? Dissecting these answers, it seems to solve our search of how to live life from that internal freedom and peace. Eckhart Tolle said, is there a difference between happiness and inner peace? And he said, yes. Happiness depends on conditions being perceived as positive, whereas inner peace does not. So what he's saying there is that happiness is fleeting. It depends on circumstances outside of ourselves, outside of our control, to give us or to tell us that it's okay to be happy. Whereas inner peace, it's there, it's rock solid. The outside conditions can be turbulent as hell, but it's two different things. When we're at peace, it doesn't mean that we're jubilant. It doesn't mean that we're full of energy and we're laughing and we're giggly. All that stuff actually eventually leads to the come down. So, it's like there's this emotional roller coaster. When we find that inner, that lifelong search of inner peace, that a few of us have been able to attain, it's like we get off that roller coaster and we find this level ground. We find this level ground. And so Marcus is telling us that despite the blows of life, that we may not make it to our desired destinations of what we thought was important inside of our life, if we continue learning how to live, how to serve others, how to achieve humility. Maybe that's where we can discover this hint of inner peace inside of our lives. Like what if today we were able to take a step back from the circumstances that have impacted our life that maybe we feel so uneasy about? What if we were able to take a step back and say that, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now? Like, what if everything that's around us at this point, it's exactly what we're supposed to be? I remember I was listening to, what's his name? He's a famous guru. Anyway, he was talking about how he came to this realization, this point that just hit him, and it kind of blew his mind. And it was like he was always looking for like the lessons, like how do I live inside of this life? How do I find that peace, or how do I become that guru? He wanted to become this guru, and he wanted to become enlightened so that he could help other people reduce suffering. That was his main mission. And he was talking with somebody who was on that same level, and this person said, "Hey, no worries, Anthony, right? It's good to see you on here." And he got to this point and he said, "You know what? Like, what if this life is the lesson? What if there is no lesson that you're supposed to find? Living this life is the lesson. The situation that you are in, that is your lesson. The challenges that you are faced with, that you have to overcome, that is your lesson. What if this life is our lesson? What if we could stop searching for answers and seeking and then just be at peace with what is, and just finding, like, today I choose to be at peace with what is." This isn't the stuff that I usually try to talk about, guys. It's a little bit out of my realm, but I feel like it's an important quest. And the journey of seeking this inner peace, I've been thinking about it for a long time, and studying and researching, as I'm sure a lot of us have. And when it comes down to it, there are like three different spheres that lead to creating that inner feeling of peace and joy and gratitude and being okay basically with where life has taken us. And that's addressing these three different spheres inside of our life, and that's our mind, our body, and our soul. I mean, you think about it, is that can you find inner peace when your body is out of harmony? Like when your body is hurting, when you feel pain, when your body is unhealthy, and when your body is unhealthy, the soup that our brain sits in resides within our body. And so finding, for me in my journey, and I'd like to hear for you, like one of my first steps in creating momentum inside of my life, where I started to feel like I was the one that was behind the wheel of how my life was going to turn out. For so long I felt like life was just happening to me. I was just like riding on this roller coaster, and I didn't have any say over how I felt. I didn't have any say over my emotions. I didn't have any say how I processed information. And then suddenly I realized, like, hey, like I do have some control over this situation. And that was when I first started diving into taking care of my body and creating health. And I know that, like, when I neglect that, getting off of that emotional roller coaster seems to be a lot more challenging. So like those three spheres, we have our body, and then we have our mind, and that's taking care of, like the emotional traumas, the negative belief patterns that happen inside of our minds so often. And this is the stuff that I try to help. I try to share information about from people who are a lot smarter than myself, because like learning how to manage these different spheres inside of our life, it ultimately, when we are able to create that balance, ultimately that leads to feeling more, what's the word, authentic. It leads to feeling more powerful, more at ease. It's like learning how to swim inside of an ocean after not knowing how to swim for a really long time, or never knowing. It's like we're stuck in this water, like during this lifetime, we're stuck in this water. We might as well learn how to swim, elegantly, because that's no matter what we want inside of our life, if we want to create an impact, if we want to be able to influence people, if we want to be able to achieve certain goals, or launch a successful company, or make a shitload of money, or travel the world, learning how to navigate this life, learning how to swim inside this reality, is extremely important if we want any of that stuff. And so that's why I think it's so important for each one of us, and you're probably already on this journey. If you're still watching, I'm sure that you probably are, and that's learning how to balance or harmonize between the mind and the body and the soul. And the soul aspect, it's like how do we do that? How do we go about harmonizing? How do we go about developing these areas or finding mastery or freedom or peace inside of these areas of our life? And in my interpretation of trying to understand how to do this, with our body, like we know, it's exercise, it's eating, depending on how you look at it, high vibrational or nutrient dense, powerful foods, staying away from the stuff that comes inside packages. It's almost that simple. It's knowing what's poison and what isn't inside of our lives. And then there's movement. It's just running and exercise. And when it comes to the mind, it's taking the time to think about and write about and work through the crap that's happened inside of our lives. Like, we all have faced traumatic situations. It's an aspect of living. And what I have found, as far as for simple tools that I can relate right now, like journaling, is extremely powerful and helpful. That's one of the most powerful things, getting things, free thought, just writing. Good, Anthony. I'm glad, man. I'm glad that it's always relevant. That's what I try to do, and that's who I try to talk to. Is I'm just trying to be real. Like when I come on here and I talk about this stuff, like, I just want you guys to know, like, I have not mastered any of this. It's like, if anything, I am so far behind the curve. That's why I want to understand. That's why I try to read this stuff. That's why I try to expand, is because I feel like there's so much to learn and to move forward inside of this life. There's so much room for growth, and that's why I try to move through it. So like journaling, extremely powerful. And then there's all kinds of modalities that you can learn, from Psych K to neuro-linguistic programming. Like, these are all extremely powerful tools that we can use inside of our life. Or you can hire a coach. Like, there's a lot of people out there that work specifically to help people move through traumas. It's like, when we experience something as a kid, like, we think that, oh, that was such a shitty thing, that was a bad memory. And what we don't know is that bad memory, that thing that happened to us at the time, it's like this anchor point. It leaves this emotional memory, this residue inside of our life, where it influences our filter, our perception of how we see the world. And then from that point on, we see everything through that filter, and we don't even know that it's impacting us at that level. Like, we can't even see it unless we take the time to go back and look at it. When you look at the work of shamanism is very much in tune with this idea of developing mind, body, and spirit. And I think that the majority of what they focus on, while they do focus on the body, like at the time that shamanism came into place, like, we didn't have to navigate such a toxic environment at that time as we do now. So today, focusing on how we fuel our bodies is so much more important than it was at the time when shamanism was developing itself over the last, however many thousands of years. But they focus on the mind and the soul, so facing death. That's something that when you go back and you read, like, Stoicism, and you study people from the ancient past, and they talk about, like, the journey of becoming whole inside of ourselves, shamanism plays a huge role in that. It focuses on dying while we're still alive. Like some people could say ego death. And for some reason, whenever I hear that ego death thing, like, it just kind of sends off this, I don't like it. But it's being able to accept the part of us that is alive, I guess, inside of this life. Like, there's different parts of us, right? There's a part of our mind, this part of us that judges, this part of us that talks to ourselves. And it's kind of like, if we don't take the time to silence our mind and get in touch with who we are, we never recognize that there's really two different aspects of us. There's the one that is made and developed over all the stuff that's happened, our experiences. It's who we relate to. It's like, oh, my name is Nate. Like, I've owned this business and I've failed in this business and I have 2 kids. And then there's, like, this awareness, this part of us that's just here. It's the part of us that observes, like, when we are sad or when we're happy. And I kind of forgot where I was going with that. But it's being able to recognize that part of ourselves and I put it to bed. Like, be okay with the fact that someday both you and I and everyone know, like, we're all gonna pass away from this world. Like, we're only here for such a brief amount of time. Like, life is so short, and we need to make the most of it, don't we? Or learn the most of what we can from this experience. And that kind of goes back to this idea, this inner peace. It's it's knowing that this time is limited. It's knowing that eventually you and I are going to pass from this life. And what matters? Like, ultimately, what really matters? What's important? Or is anything that we do today going to be remembered? Is anything that we do tomorrow going to impact or matter to anyone? And if we can make our lives matter, if we know that every day when we wake up, we're doing something that's going to impact somebody else, it's going to matter at least something, at least a little bit. It's like it quiets a certain part of our mind where we can exist and we move closer to being able to attain peace. I feel like I'm rambling now, guys, so I think I'm going to bounce. I got some family over this weekend. I'm looking forward to hanging out. And I hope that you guys have an awesome weekend. I hope you have a really good time. So I appreciate all of you for being here. I guess I will see you on Monday. So yeah, go back. Okay, so the original thought I want to leave with you guys is stand back today from the circumstances that you're experiencing. And if you can, say to yourself, I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. Just keep saying that. And if you can find that like feeling of being okay, of being exactly where you are, suddenly moving forward should become a lot easier. All right, guys. Peace out. Love you guys. Rise unconquered.